Hi everyone. Today I want to share a very large new product collection called Christmastime is Here, and it contains a lot of elements, so I'm going to go through them a bit by bit. There's a stamp set that is really cool because it is a 2-box set, and one of the boxes is red rubber and the other is photopolymer. And they, that was smart of them. I'm actually quite happy about that. I was like, what? But red rubber is the best, really. And you get nice, fine detail in the red rubber. And, they've got to go around these little pine boughs and make this beautiful rose. And it embosses so crisply, and it's really great. So you want red rubber if you can get it. I know that photopolymer helps us save a little bit of money, so that's nice. So, this one, though, you want photopolymer because it's sentiments that you want to line up in just the right place, and you're building an image here with the leaves and the roses, and you can see where they go, and you want to be able to use the clear stamp. So you get the best of both worlds. I guess they just couldn't decide which one they wanted to go with, and they thought, we don't have to be the same in both boxes. We can do one red rubber and one photopolymer in the same bundle. How about that? So anyway, it's the first time I've seen that, and I like it. So that's the stamp set. Look how big it is. 13 stamps. And this one, I have to say, is my favorite. Although I like this Merry Christmas a lot. It's a really good size. There's a couple smaller Christmas sentiments that you can use on the inside or even the outside of the card. And so it's a really nice Christmas selection here. And I like it a lot. This is called Christmas Rose. And you can buy just the stamp set if you like. And there's so much you can do with the stamp set by itself. I've used this image and I have a ton of projects to show you with it and some of these others. So that's one thing. But there's also a die set. If you bundle the die and the stamp set together, you save 10%. And here's the dies. You're going to like these. First off, you've got this large one and it cuts out this giant Christmas rose. And that's awesome. And then you get 2 different labels that fit the larger and smaller sentiments. And then you've got these fun brackets here. I used this one on a card. I'll show you in a minute. And I've used this one, I think, too. I think I cut some extras. So it's a pretty little lacy detail that you can use on a card. And then these brackets, and you get 2 of them. So, less cranking when you're on your big shot. You can add them to your label here, or you can use them on their own. They're quite lovely. So you'd get 2 of those. So there's 7 dies and 13 stamps, and that you can bundle together. And there's a few other things that go with this collection. Some gold ribbon, and this is a very soft shimmer gold. It's not a very bright like gold lame gold. It's really pretty soft shimmery gold ribbon, and it's really nice size. I think it's a 1/4 inch size. Yeah. It's really nice. It's a good size for card making. And then there are also these gold glitter enamel dots. So you've got all this gold here, which of course is because there's gold in the paper. Now let me show you the paper. I've already used quite a bit of it. So I want to point out one thing about it. You know how normally there are 6 different papers and you get 2 each of the paper, giving you a total of 12 sheets. Well, you still get 12 sheets, but instead of there being 6 different designs with double-sided, you only have 4 different designs. I'm sorry, 3 different designs, double-sided, so a total of 6 different designs. But the cool thing about that is that means that you get 4 of each sheet instead of only 2 of each sheet, and that's great for Christmas because, at Christmas time you want to make a lot of multiples, so you might not want to have 6 different patterns. 3 is great. And then you've got more of the ones you want because you've got 4 whole sheets of this. And here's the back. And the front sides have some gold accents. Here's the front side. Now this is that Christmas rose stamp right there. So that means the die fits this paper. I like when they do that. So see, you can use the die. Oops, got it turned around. You can use the die to cut out right from the paper. It's beautiful. And how simple is that? So you've got 1, 2, 3, and they placed it so that you do get a lot. You can get 1, 2, 3, 4 of these, and they're big. 4 of the big roses on your sheet, and then you've got this other rose here, which you can cut out pretty simply. Maybe not the berries and the little pine needles in and out, but I'll show you. I did cut some out and I want to show you. And then you've still got a large piece here, and I cut it out because even though it's only a bit, I'm going to use that. That is going to be on the edge of a card or a scrapbook page. You know, you're going to use these pieces. So I cut it out even though it wasn't a full one. All right, so you've got this page. Here's the back, nice pine cones. This one I think is my favorite. So I was super happy that I got 4 of this one. Look at that. It's gold. And here's the back, and this is pretty. I really like this. Little swirls with tiny little holly berry. I think it's just lovely. Okay, here's another. And you get 4 of this one. This one has gold accents around the leaves, the flowers, the roses. And here is the back, a nice green. So you've got the 3 different papers, but 4 of each, giving you 12 sheets, which is really cool. So anyway, hope that made sense. Different than our norm, so I think that it's really kind of fun that they did a lot of different things with this stamp set. Now, I want to show you some projects. Oh, there's one more thing that you can get that goes with it. Perfect for Christmas. There's a bracelet. Now, obviously, you're not going to, you can put the bracelet on a card if you want to, but it's just a fun little gift to add on. It's Christmas time, and you probably have friends that you stamp with. And here is the Stampin' Up logo charm. So it's a way to get a cute little logo charm on a bracelet. You can add some more charms to your bracelet as you go. And it's a fun little bracelet. It's pretty sturdy, and you know, it slips on by, you know, just stretching a little bit. And this charm is a rose. So you've got a rose on one charm and the Stampin' Up logo on the other, and it comes in this cute little box. And if you have a stampy friend that you do stampin' retreats with, or you go and scrapbook together, this might be a fun little gift for them for Christmas. Okay, so the bundle is huge and it has a lot going on, and so I want to give you an offer. If you purchase the bundle, the stamp and the dies from me, I'm going to send you a PDF on some close-ups of these cards. It's not going to have a step-by-step for each card because there's a lot of cards here, but I'm going to show you a close-up picture and some tips and tricks on how I did each of the cards. And I'm going to show you them right now. And then I'm going to paint with you. I want to show you how you can paint with these stamps, use your blends and your colored pencils, all different ways to color them in. And I think it's a super pretty looking stamp. I think so. I hope that you like my samples that I made. First off, I wanted to go with easy, and that is using the papers that came in the paper pack. Okay, so here's the rose that you have to cut out on your own, and I used that on these 2 cards. On this one, I even cut out more and layered them on top of each other, so I've got some different heights. I've got a leaf down low, and then I've got another layer, and then an even, so it's triple layers here. This rose has popped up, and this rose has popped up. These are recessed. This leaf is up, but this one's recessed, and the pine cone, so you've got different layers going on here, and I think that's really fun. And I've used a couple of the papers in the background too. So this is a fun card. Only stamping was on the embossing. Oh, and I used, see how I was telling you about how I had used some of the images that don't quite make it onto the full image on the page? Well, you can use those little side cutout ones. This one's a little big for the inside, although you could probably do it. On the inside, just adds a nice little touch to the inside of your card. And then I've got the Merry Christmas. Now this one doesn't have any layers. It's just one layer on that, but it's still just beautiful. And I've got the Merry Christmas. Oh, and here's one of those edges I was talking about that, you know, comes off the page. You use them, save them. Look how cute. And it adds a nice little touch to the inside of your card as well. So you can just use the papers for a beautiful card. And I embossed the Merry Christmas with gold embossing powder. And this one just uses the papers as an accent. I didn't cut anything out. I've got, you know, when you make cards, you end up with these strips. Well, I had some strips laying on my desk when I love them, and I don't like to throw them away. I'm a scrapbooker by heart, so I like to use scraps. And so these are my scraps, and I think they look really pretty on this card. And how simple is that card? And then, of course, another little scrap on the inside. So these are using the papers, as is this one. And this one, same idea. On this one, I used the big rose that you cut out with the die. And I made a little fun fold here. You can write your sentiments here. I embossed on vellum. It kind of helps it show a little bit. On this one, I didn't emboss on the vellum, and I don't think it shows as much. I did a double emboss here. I embossed in gold and then I embossed in black, slightly offset to kind of give a interesting effect, but I think it shows better on the vellum. I played with this stamp set all day yesterday. So this one is just the papers. I did not stamp this one. Okay, now this one is just the stamps. So this is the photopolymer stamps, and I just kind of layered some pine needles and the pine cones and the berries, and I just kind of layered them around on the card, and that's the rose. And here's that die, that little lacy die. And on the inside, I did the same thing. I put the little pine cones and the little berries on here. So that's just using the photopolymer stamps. This is all photopolymer, and I think that looks pretty. I'm going to tell you a tip on this one. Don't stress lining this up perfectly. There's probably a way to line it up perfectly so that the berries are perfect and everything is perfect. I'm a speedy stamper, I think. I think I like to just go with it. And so my pine cone is not exactly tucked into this leaf, and my berries do not exactly line up, and I think it looks beautiful, and I'm okay with that. And this is super cute. So there's the photopolymer. Okay, on this one, I stamped in Memento black ink, and then I used my Stampin Blends to color it in. So I used Cherry Cobbler and Mossy Meadow Blends and Poppy Parade and Soft Suede on the pine cones to color in with the blends. And I like that the rose is deep and has some light and dark highlights on it with the blends. And this one I did with my watercolor. Same thing with the background here. I used the photopolymer pine needles and berries in the background and sprayed it with water, and then I watercolored my gold embossed image here. So that one took the most time probably out of all of them, maybe the blends. And then I want to show you, here's a watercolor one. This one is colored pencil. So you can do a really nice job with your colored pencil as well. So it's fun if you like to color. I do in fact like to color, so I stamped a bunch of these and I watercolored a bunch of them, and I blended a bunch of them, and I colored penciled a bunch of them too. So here's a colored pencil. Here is a watercolor, and here is blends. All lovely. And then I want to show you what you can do without coloring. Maybe coloring is not your thing. That rose is just gorgeous on its own in a gold embossing. Isn't that pretty? Here it is as a Christmas card. But I thought this would be beautiful for a winter wedding as well. It's got pine cones and berries and little pine needles, so it doesn't have to be Christmas, but that kind of reminds me of Christmas, the pine needles and the berries. But there's lots of people that get married in the winter, and how pretty would that card be for a wedding? Really pretty. I've got some gold foil in the back. A little tip for that is if you're going to use a whole sheet of gold foil is pricey. So what I do is I cut things out of the middle. So this one is probably missing this big rectangle right out of the middle. I see this sitting on my desk. I bet I did that. And this one is probably missing a bunch of these little shapes that when I go to die cut, or when I go to cut my foil pieces, because they're pricier, I cut a bunch of these little things, even if I don't have a use for them just yet, because I know I'll use them eventually. And this, you're going to use that. So cut yourself some shapes before you layer this down. That's my little tip on this card. Okay, and then I thought we would watercolor together just so you can see how fun it is, because I love to watercolor. So I already embossed this. Isn't that a beautiful embossing? I think that the Christmas of this is just lovely. I think it's really pretty, and we're going to do that. And I also thought I would share how I did that background. This one, it looks really pretty in person. I should have used maybe a little more green, but it's really easy and I think pretty. I taped down with some washi tape a piece of shimmer white cardstock, and I like that because it handles watercolor very nicely, but it's not as heavy as watercolor paper. Now watercolor paper will work just as well. So I just like the shimmer on this because it's a pretty gold Christmassy card, but you can use watercolor paper too. So for the background, I used pine background stamp. Now there's a bunch of them in this stamp set, and I liked this one and this one because they had the pine kind of by itself, and that's the part I wanted to use because I'm going to watercolor. I don't want this leaf shape because I don't want it to be just a blob of leaf. But this is a big long stamp, and this is a big, this is not 1, 2, 3 stamps, this is one stamp, and this is one stamp. But I really only wanted that one. So what I do is I put it on the block. I don't like to cut my stamps. I know some people cut their stamps. I don't do that. So I put it on a block and I fold it over and like this. So I'm going to use just this pine. And then I grabbed a few berries. And I'll show you how I did that. I stamped in Mossy Meadow and Cherry Cobbler. Okay, I did my Cherry Cobbler first. Let me move this out of the way. And I just randomly put down some Cherry Cobbler berries. And then I grabbed my spritzer. This is an awesome tool to have on hand, and they come in a 2-pack, I think. And I just fill it with water, and then I just spray. Now how much you spray and how soon you spray is going to help determine the amount of spread you're going to get. And you can decide how much you like. I wanted people to still be able to see the berry shape. As you can see, I sprayed a lot more on this one, and I lost some of the berry shape. And that's okay. I added it more by going in after the fact, after it was kind of dried and a little bit wet. You can go and say, you know, I wish I would have put more in this top corner, and it's still wet, so it's going to bleed a little bit, and it's going to look really fun. I'm not going to be able to see the middle because something will be over it, but see, the berries don't bleed as much because it's not getting that direct spray. And while it's still wet, I went in with my little pine needles here, and I added them, and see how fun that is? It just kind of starts to spray out, but you can still see the pine shape, little needles. And as it's drying, it's going to become less and less spread out, and as there's less water in some areas. So you'll have to decide if you want to spritz it again or leave it be. I love the spread of the water. Isn't that fun? I just like it. I love watercolor. So this area didn't get as much water. So what you can do is you can spray it again, or you can grab your aqua painter and you can kind of help it along, get this a little bit wet, and you can just kind of help it along by dabbing a little bit of water around it, just so that it's not such a, this one doesn't look like it had any water at all, and you want to soften it just a little bit, but it keeps its nice pine needle shape. There. Okay, so you can let this go and use that as you like. Now it's taped down, so my edges aren't going to get it. You can then either use that nice painted off, taped off edge as is. It might look really cool to have it like that, or you can cut it. This one I just trimmed when I was done. I trimmed the paper down so you didn't see the cut edge. And that's it for this one. I'll let that dry. And let's paint this. Okay, for that I'm using my aqua painter. I think this is green, right? Okay. And I'm going to start with the roses. Again, they're Cherry Cobbler. And I have a pool of Cherry Cobbler in my lid because I paint with my ink all the time. So the little areas in the middle are not going to show up as much. I just go ahead and fill those in with my ink and water and give it a light wash. And I kind of give almost the whole thing a light wash before I start. Okay, so the whole area has a little whitewash. And then you're going to pick up some ink again and go in and add some dark areas to that center. So there's some shadow areas. Kind of work your way out. And it's still a little wet, so it's going to blend a little bit. Okay, and then on some of the bigger leaves, I'm going to go back in, and I like the tips of my petals to be darker, and maybe you're the opposite, so you would put your darker areas towards them, which would make sense, kind of towards the shadow area, but I think that my rose petals tend to be darker on the outside, maybe because they're drying out a little bit, I don't know. And I'm just going to add some deeper color to the outside, and then kind of blend it in towards the middle. And you want to have some highlights and some lowlights, so don't make it all dark. And then I just kind of get some ink off my brush by going off to the side. Let's do this one. So I'm going to put dark at the top. And then get some ink off and then kind of smear it down towards the bottom. And you might need to squeeze your brush every once in a while to get some more water flowing in there. Well, this petal is probably dry, so I'm going to kind of wet it a little bit. And then drop that dark edge on there. Kind of let it do its little flowy thing. Okay, so I'm going to speed up the rest of my rose painting, and then when we get to the leaf I'll slow it down again so that you can hear some commentary on the leaf. So again, I like to kind of go over the whole thing lightly. I don't do that with every image, but with these small areas with lots of little things going on, I think that's kind of a good way to do it so you don't miss anything. And then go back over and add some dark areas. And sometimes you want to let it sit for a minute so that when you add the dark areas on top, they don't just instantly blend into the light areas and you don't see them anymore. But I'm working with almost a dry brush at this point. It's not very wet, just slightly wet. It kind of bleeds out in the center there. Got my light. I'm going to go back in with the darker ink, and that just means there's less water. It's the same color ink. And I'm going to go in and add some little veining. I'm also going to add a little bit of darkness next to this leaf because it's kind of like a shadow from this leaf. and this is Mossy Meadow. So I used Cherry Cobbler for the rose, soft suede on the pine cones, Mossy Meadow on the leaves, and the little berries are Poppy Parade. Alright, my last leaf. Now you can decide, there's also these little pine needles. They are so super fine, and you can decide whether or not you want them to remain gold and just be these pretty gold little pine accents, or if you want to add some detail, just wisp some spruce or something on there. I couldn't decide. So this one I went in with my aqua painter and I added some shaded spruce and I wisped it kind of lightly with the, I mean, you can't really go in each of those, so you just kind of move your brush like this, or you can decide if you want to leave it gold accented and just let it be as it is. I think for this one I will. So that is how to paint the Christmas rose. And I have, like I said, a ton of cards that I made with this. So head over, if you want to see stills, to my blog, bestpapercuts.com, or I have an idea sharing gallery, or idea sharing page, I should say, on Facebook, where you can add what you've done to with the Christmas rose stamp set. If you've got it already and you're using it, you can show us what you're doing with it. We would love to see it. And also, I share a lot of different ideas, and throughout as I add more, I go back and add more. So it's Beth's Paper Cuts Idea Sharing Group on Facebook. You have to join, but I approve everybody. And then you can see all these kind of as a still and ask questions about them individually, or show us what you're doing. And all these links to purchase, and you can get the Christmas rose. It's a limited time stamp set. It's for November for customers and until supplies last. So it's a limited time stamp set. I think it's pretty cool that it's got the photopolymer and the red rubber, and it's pretty. So you know what the pretty thing is the paper too. You can use the paper with the frosted. If you did, what was the name of that? First Frost or something. If you bought that last Christmas, that had a really pretty frosted flower similar to this but smaller, and these papers would look beautiful with that. This paper would be great for just about any Christmas project, really. And use, again, this would be really pretty at Valentine's Day as well. So you can get a jump on that, and just the different roses, or weddings. This is a great paper collection. So I grabbed a couple packs of the paper collection, and then you know, the stamps. So take a look at that, and you want to check out that really pretty ribbon. If you want all of it, there's a bundled ID number for the whole thing in one swoop. But certainly check out the papers and the ribbon and the enamel dots and the stamp set. Thanks so much for watching. I know it was a long one. Bye-bye.